kelopak mata semakin tertutup atau kuyu. Lupa kejadian di waktu-waktu terakhir.
US appreciates Malaysian commitment towards combating terror funding. Government collaborates with Meta to develop WhatsApp chatbot. Good evening and Salam Malaysia Madani. I am Olivia Nicholas and you're watching Malaysia Tonight. The United States appreciates Malaysia's commitment to combat funding for terrorist activities and money laundering. Home Minister Datuk Seri Saifuddin Nasution Ismail said this was stated by the Under-Secretary of the US Treasury for Terrorism and Financial Intelligence, Brian Nelson, during a meeting in Putrajaya.
To DSA and SAHIH.
Home Minister Datuk Seri Saifuddin Nasution Ismail said his ministry understands the concerns raised by the United States regarding the alleged channeling of funds to terrorist groups in this country. According to him, the Under-Secretary of the US Treasury for Terrorism and Financial Intelligence, Brian Nelson, was also informed that Malaysia has a very strategic plan in dealing with illegal financing activities and money laundering.
Dia menghargai kerana dari segi undang-undang kita mempunyai perundangan yang solid, bukan saja dari segi nama tetapi kita menguatkuasakannya. Itu satu. Saya juga mengambil peluang untuk menyebut bahawa plan strategik 5 tahun yang baru saja disiapkan oleh Kementerian Dalam Negeri untuk menangani perkara-perkara terkait dengan ekstremisme dan terorisme juga sudah pun tersedia.
In the meantime, the minister said Malaysia is open on working with the US to combat the issue of terrorist financing and the matter should be comprehensive and not a unilateral effort.
The Communications Ministry, in collaboration with Meta Platforms Incorporated Meta, is in the process of developing a WhatsApp chatbot feature set to be launched by the end of this month. Minister Fahmi Fadil said the chatbot feature will serve as a platform for users to verify the authenticity of information shared on the WhatsApp application.
He mentioned that he has personally tested the feature and is satisfied with its performance, but noted that certain technical aspects need to be finalized with Meta before it can be launched.
Harapan saya nanti semua yang menerima WhatsApp yang tak dapat kita sahkan daripada grup-grup surau, grup-grup taman, grup-grup alumni sekolah, kalau dapat maklumat yang kita tak dapat nak sahkan, kita boleh forward kepada chatbot ini dalam WhatsApp dan kita dapat pengesahan di situ.
For the verification responses by the chatbot, Fahmi said reports from the Jom Check group will be utilized, which involve several non-governmental organizations, including MyCheck from Bernama, Malaysian National News Agency, which have very high standards. He said this to reporters after the Network and Infrastructure Partnership Framework soft launch in Hulu Selangor today. Fahmi, who is also the Unity Government's spokesperson, said he would ensure that the WhatsApp chatbot facility is capable of providing responses and feedback to users' inquiries in multiple languages, including Malay, English, Chinese, and Tamil.
On another note, Fahmi said that 6 mobile network operators (MNOs) have agreed to a network and infrastructure sharing framework to provide enhanced and comprehensive coverage to users. The 6 MNOs involved are Celcom DG, 2 separate networks, Maxis, U-Mobile, Telekom Malaysia and YTL Communications.
Ini adalah cara yang mungkin tak pernah dibuat di negara-negara lain. Ya, satu perjanjian komersial antara syarikat-syarikat telco tapi dikendalikan oleh Badan Kawal Selia ataupun MCMC, dan kita harap ia akan dapat mula menyelesaikan sejumlah masalah yang dihadapi oleh para pengguna perkhidmatan telekomunikasi.
He said currently progress stands at over 70%. Citing Kuala Kubu Baharu, he said 9 towers have been identified with 5 sharing networks among MNOs. According to Fahmi, over the next 6 to 12 months, the MNOs will undertake testing of the implementation model within the framework on live networks at 5 identified locations. Meanwhile, Fahmi mentioned that the ministry is also in discussions with telecommunication companies to establish a Rama 5G plan initiative tailored for students in the country.
The government is currently focusing on efforts to address the non-revenue water NRW issue across the country as it is causing losses of over 2 billion ringgit annually. Deputy Prime Minister Dato Seri Fadillah Yusof said these efforts include providing matching grants to assist water operators in dealing with the NRW issue more effectively and sustainably.
Strategi kita, mana-mana kerajaan negeri yang non-revenue water lebih daripada 5%, kerajaan persekutuan membantu dengan memberi grant kepada mereka. Yang sudah baik, kita akan beri secara pinjaman untuk menggantikan paip-paip lama. Ini salah satu usaha kita. Ini juga akan menjadi fokus kita sehingga kita dapat menyelesaikan non-revenue water.
Dato Seri Fadillah, who is also Minister of Energy Transition and Water Transformation, said this after delivering a keynote address at the Symposium on Future Leaders of Water Sustainability Flows 2024, Accelerating Impact for Water Resilience today. In his keynote address, he said the 12th Malaysia Plan RMK12 outlines strategic objectives to bolster water security and sustainability by aligning with United Nations Sustainable Development Goal number 6 or SDG 6, specifically targeting to enhance clean water coverage and reduce non-revenue water in supporting a resilient water infrastructure. He also stressed that achieving sustainable water management will require a foundation of data-driven policies and collaboration between multiple stakeholders.
Transport Minister Anthony Loke today said the ship claimed to be owned by an Israeli company while using the port in this country has actually changed ownership to another company based in Hong Kong. He insisted that his ministry had inspected and investigated the matter and found that the vessel was registered under Zim Rotterdam earlier. Met by reporters today, he said the vessel have changed hands and the ship is now called MV Rotterdam and the ownership of the ship is not Zim Rotterdam but under the Gold Star Line Company.
Dia jual beli kapal. Jadi walaupun sebelum ini betul kapal itu dia ialah atas nama Zim, tetapi sekarang ini telah bertukar nama. Dan dia jual ataupun tukar hak milik, itu perkara biasalah. Dasar kita ialah kita telah tetapkan dengan tegas kalau syarikat perkapalan Zim dia tidak dibenarkan berlabuh di Malaysia. Tetapi apabila kapal itu telah bertukar tangan milik orang lain, milik syarikat lain, kita tak boleh menghalang syarikat yang kita tak ban.
A report by a local portal had claimed that a cargo ship belonging to an Israeli company was spotted departing Malaysia last week, less than 5 months after Prime Minister Dato Seri Anwar Ibrahim announced that all ships belonging to the Zionist regime were prohibited from using ports in this country as a sign of solidarity with the Palestinian people. The Malaysian government on the 30th of December decided not to accept ships flying the Israeli flag to be anchored in the country with immediate effect. At the same time, Dato Seri Anwar was reported as saying that the government also imposed a ban on any ship on its way to Israel from loading cargo at Malaysian ports. A total allocation of 180 billion ringgit in the construction sector for government and private sector projects will be up for grabs this year. Deputy Works Minister Dato Seri Ahmad Mazlan said 90 billion ringgit of that is the allocation approved for the federal government development expenditure in budget 2024, while the rest is from the private sector.
Jadi ada dua jenis tender terbuka. Tender terbuka biasa, satu lagi ialah tender terbuka prakelayakan terpilih. Kita berharap sebahagian besar daripada 90 bilion ringgit projek dalam bajet 2024 yang dikategorikan sebagai DE, bajet pembangunan ataupun development expenditure itu boleh dilaksanakan sebahagian besarnya pada pertengahan tahun ini.
Meanwhile, the Deputy Minister said that the prospects of the country's construction industry are expected to improve entering the second half of 2024 as construction works from government allocations will begin to enter the implementation phase. Additionally, to ensure that government projects are advanced smoothly and on schedule, the ministry will propose the use of closed-circuit camera surveillance at construction sites. This is to ensure that appointed contractors carry out their duties properly and adhere to the set timeline.
Up next in our business segment, incentivization vital for progressive wage policy implementation. The implementation of the progressive wage policy is critical to incentivize companies to raise wages voluntarily. Economy Ministry Deputy Secretary General for Policy Dato Dr. Zunika Mohamad said the ministry continues to work on reducing gaps within the national labour market to mitigate the wage compression effect.
She noted that making the labour market lucrative is one of the structural pain points in Malaysia's economy, especially for small and medium enterprises, SMEs. She also said that the country's stagnant wages have created a wage compression effect, particularly for those just entering the labour force. The Deputy Secretary General also underscored industry players and markets' endorsement of the National Energy Transition Roadmap, or NETR, emphasising its potential to attract significant investment in green transformation. In addition to workforce development, she also highlighted other consolidation efforts such as the Central Database Hub, PADU, and subsidy rationalisation. She explained that PADU's data collection exercise would facilitate data-driven policymaking and minimise errors in targeting subsidies. Dato Dr. Zunika also acknowledged the challenges posed by an ageing population, brain drain and fiscal constraints, and emphasised the need for firm reforms and cross-sector partnerships to steer the economy in the right direction.
The National Chamber of Commerce and Industry (NCCIM) has urged the government to diligently implement and execute all proposed policies and initiatives with clarity, uniformity and consistency.
Its President Tan Sri So Tian Lai said the government should also work with other jurisdictions to deepen international cooperation, address global vulnerabilities and promote multilateral trade. He said the government needs to have a clear long-term policy concept, for example, the Progressive Wage Policy, PWP, and the Minimum Wage Policy. Raising emerging technologies can help business owners unlock their full potential and achieve sustainable, inclusive growth. On another note, the President also urged to reintroduce the Goods and Services Tax, GST, as a step to increase the country's income. He said the comprehensive GST tax system is able to strengthen the economy and restore the business environment. He also said NCCIM, along with 5 other business councils, also agreed that GST should be introduced at a rate of 4%.
So we are thinking that GST is still the better tax system, better options. We hope the government can consider on this. We have been trying to propose to government many times. Our National Chamber of Commerce and Industry of Malaysia, we prefer this once for all. And then everyone knows that there is a continuity, there is additional revenue coming in every year, and every year increase because you spend more, you pay more.
The Department of Statistics Malaysia, or DOSM, said the country's services sector revenue registered a 6.1% year-on-year YOY growth in the first quarter of 2024 to 594.5 billion ringgit. The development is attributed to favourable performance in all segments of the services sector.
In a statement today, Chief Statistician Dato Sri Dr. Muhammad Uzair Mahidin said a significant increase was recorded in wholesale and retail trade, food and beverages and accommodation segment, which rose 23.3 billion ringgit to reach 451.6 billion ringgit. In terms of e-commerce income, the chief statistician said it recorded 293.2 billion ringgit, which grew 0.5% year-on-year in first quarter 2024. On a quarter-on-quarter QOQ comparison, e-commerce income increased marginally by 0.5%. The number of persons engaged in this sector was 4.4 million persons, an increase of 72,200 persons or 1.7% year-on-year. Meanwhile, salaries and wages paid registered an increase of 1.0 billion ringgit or 3.3% year-on-year. In a separate statement, the chief statistician noted that Malaysia's volume index of services registered an annual growth of 4.5%, recording 150.4 points in the first quarter of 2024, while QOQ comparison recorded a 1.3% increase.
Bank Negara Malaysia BNM Monetary Policy Committee MPC has decided to maintain the overnight policy rate OPR at 3% at its meeting today. The central bank, through a statement release, said the global economy continues to expand amid resilient labour markets in some countries and continued recovery in global trade.
BNM said global trade is expected to strengthen further as the global tech upcycle gains momentum. It said that while global headline and core inflation continued to edge downward in recent months, the disinflation pace has slowed in some advanced economies. For the Malaysian economy, BNM said the latest indicators point towards higher economic activity in the first quarter of 2024, driven by resilient domestic expenditure and a positive turnaround in exports. Moving forward, the recovery in exports is expected to gather momentum, supported by the global tech upcycle and continued strength in non-electrical and electronic goods. Tourist arrivals and spending are also poised to rise further, while continued employment and wage growth remain supportive of household spending, the central bank said. BNM said the growth outlook is subject to downside risk from weaker than expected external demand and larger declines in commodity production.
In our foreign front, Putin reinforces stoic stance against the West in Victory Day parade. Russia President Vladimir Putin on Thursday accused the West of risking a global conflict and said no one would be allowed to threaten the world's biggest nuclear power as Russia marked the Soviet Union's victory over Nazi Germany in World War II.
As Russian troops advance against Ukraine's Western-backed forces, Putin accused arrogant Western elites of forgetting the decisive role played by the Soviet Union in defeating Nazi Germany and of stoking conflicts across the world.
Россия будет делать все, чтобы не допустить глобального столкновения, но в то же время никому не позволим угрожать нам. Наши стратегические силы всегда в боевой готовности.
Ukraine and the West say Putin is engaged in an imperial-style land grab. They have vowed to defeat Russia, which currently controls about 18% of Ukraine, including Crimea and parts of 4 regions in eastern Ukraine. Nazi Germany's unconditional surrender came into force on the 8th of May 1945, marked as Victory in Europe Day by France, Britain and the United States. In Moscow, it was already 9th of May, which became the Soviet Union's Victory Day in what Russians call the Great Patriotic War of 1941 to 1945.
A Russian court on Wednesday rejected an appeal by Deputy Defense Minister Timur Ivanov against his pretrial detention in a bribery case in which his lawyer said he denies taking kickbacks worth about 1 billion rubles. The Moscow court service said Ivanov's appeal to be released or placed under house arrest was denied.
in the biggest corruption scandal for years involving a government minister, Ivanov is accused of receiving a particularly large bribe in the form of property services from a construction company. Ivanov's arrest last month by the FSB Security Service was widely seen as a blow to his boss, Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu. It was also seen as a sign of fighting within the elite as President Vladimir Putin prepares to name a new government at the start of his fifth term. Ivanov had appeared in military uniform when first brought to court after his arrest, but was wearing plain clothes in photographs from Wednesday's hearing. His lawyer is saying Ivanov had been temporarily removed from his ministerial duties. RIA said the defense, presumably in order to testify to Ivanov's good character, had brought to the court 4 bags of state awards that Ivanov had received.
The United States claimed that since Israel has seized the Rafah crossing and is in control of it, now it is their responsibility to open it and allow aid and humanitarian workers as soon as possible. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller on Wednesday said humanitarian assistance provided by Israel as of today are just unacceptable.
When it comes to the level of humanitarian assistance, the results as they are today are just unacceptable. There's no other way to put it. Something that the president made clear on the call that he had with Prime Minister Netanyahu on April 4th is that there needed to be a dramatic change in the delivery of humanitarian assistance into Gaza.
He also said the U.S. has paused one shipment of near-term assistance and is reviewing others in response to its concerns of a major operation in Rafah by the Israeli military. On the report to be delivered to Congress on whether Israel is violating international humanitarian law in Gaza, Miller said it's expected in the coming days. A national security memorandum known as NSM 20 was issued by U.S. President Joe Biden in February. It requires the State Department to report to Congress on whether it finds credible Israel's assurances that its use of U.S. weapons does not violate U.S. or international law.
South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol said on Thursday his government's efforts to improve people's lives had fallen short. He conceded a crushing election defeat for his ruling party last month, which reflected voters' assessment of his 2 year in office.
Yoon's comments in his first news conference in 21 months come after the defeat of his People Power Party in an April vote, which prompted calls for a change in his leadership style and policy direction to salvage a presidency not yet at the halfway point. He has pledged to communicate better with the public and parliament. The president pushed back on opposition parties' demand for a special prosecutor to investigate alleged improper conduct by the First Lady, who was captured in a video that became public in November accepting a pricey bag as a gift in 2022. While First Lady Kim Kyung-hee's behavior had been unwise, the South Korean president said the call by the opposition was a political attack. As part of a major policy push, Yoon also said a new government ministry would be created to address the country's record low birth rate and fast aging society, calling the situation a national crisis.
Japan will add fin whale to its commercial whaling species list. Its government spokesperson Yoshimasa Hayashi said on Thursday that the country's fisheries agency posted a draft of the revision to its aquatic resource control policies for public consultation earlier this week, which would allow commercial catching of fin whales.
Speaking in his regular news briefing, Hayashi said it is important to inherit traditional food culture in Japan when asked about extending its allowable catch to include the fin whale species.
政府としては捕鯨を取り巻く国際環境の改善を図るため、必要に応じ関係国との連携及び関係国への働きかけの強化、その他必要な外交上の措置を講じつつ、引き続き資源類の持続的な利用を進めてまいりたいと考えております。
According to the Fisheries Agency, Japan caught a total of 294 minke whales, Brodus whales and sei whales in 2023. It currently limits commercial whaling to these 3 relatively small species. In 2019, Japan resumed commercial whaling in its territorial waters and exclusive economic zones after withdrawing from the International Whaling Commission, IWC.
A FedEx Airlines Boeing 767 cargo plane landed at Istanbul airport on Wednesday without its front landing gear. The Turkish Transport Ministry, however, said there were no casualties and authorities had launched an investigation.
Airport rescue and firefighting teams were scrambled before landing, but no one was injured. The ministry gave no reason for the failure. Sparks and some smoke were seen at the front of the plane, scrapped along the runway before coming to a halt and being doused with firefighting foam. No fire appeared to have broken out. The aircraft involved is a nearly 10-year-old Boeing 767 freighter, one of the most common cargo planes and based on the 767 passenger model dating back to the 1980s. FedEx said in a statement it was coordinating with investigation authorities and will provide additional information as it is available. The pilots held the plane's nose above the runway for several seconds after the main wheels had touched the ground, apparently executing the emergency drill for landing with a retracted nose gear that pilots train for. The runway was temporarily closed to air traffic, but other runways at Istanbul airport were still operating normally.
To come in sports, High Court admits sexual harassment case involving former Spanish football chief. Real Madrid produced a spectacular comeback against Bayern Munich to reach the Champions League final after Joselu struck twice in the dying minutes to earn them a 2-1 win to progress 4-3 on aggregate.
Alphonso Davies smashed the visiting German giants ahead in the second half. However, journeyman striker and backup option Joselu on as a late substitute produced a sensational comeback, scoring twice in the 88th and 91st minutes. Madrid had enjoyed the better of the match, but it seemed Davies' superb strike had set up a repeat of the 2013 All-German final in London. Instead, Joselu consigned Bayern to a first trophyless season since 2012, his first goal coming after a handling error from Bayern goalkeeper Manuel Neuer. Neuer fumbled what appeared a simple Vinicius strike and substitute Joselu gratefully bundled home from close range. With Bayern reeling, Madrid struck again, decisively through Joselu, who turned home after Antonio Rudiger cut the ball back to him. The goal was ruled offside, but officials overturned the decision after review. After nearly 15 minutes of stoppage time, Madrid earned the chance to go for their 15th Champions League trophy. Spanish champions Real Madrid face another German side, Borussia Dortmund, in the Wembley final on the 1st of June.
Former Spanish Football Federation chief Luis Rubiales will stand trial for his unsolicited kiss of national team player Jenny Hermoso after a High Court judge admitted the case. Rubiales faces one count of sexual assault and one of coercion for his alleged actions in the aftermath of the case.
The offences carry prison terms of 1 year and 18 months respectively. The High Court said it would also try the former coach of the women's national team, Jorge Vilda, the team's current sporting director, Albert Luque, and the federation's head of marketing, Ruben Rivera. All three stand accused of coercing Hermosa into saying the kiss was consensual. Rubiales, 46, grabbed Hermosa and kissed her on the lips on the 20th of August during the awards ceremony after Spain's victory in the Women's World Cup in Sydney, making global headlines and causing a national debate in Spain about sexism.
That's it for Malaysia Tonight. This time around, in our top story, US appreciates Malaysian commitment towards combating terrorism funding. I'm Olivia Nicholas. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Thanks for watching. RTM teman setia anda.